All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panelists. We've all been talking about infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. We need to build infrastructure. But beyond building that infrastructure, how do we solve the execution problem, the execution gap within the enterprise space? Which begs the question, are we really using the best of what we have? So we have our panelists, they're all experts. They've gotten their hands dirty, they've done a lot, they've built, they know what it takes to execute at scale. So we will be hearing from them this afternoon, as we know that the African digital economy is growing rapidly, whether it be in financial services, oil and gas, manufacturing. But like we said, one major challenge is that execution, right? From what it takes to implement an upgrade, for example, at scale. And also the pressure, boardroom pressure, financial pressure, and also difference in priorities, right? Between the chief technology officer, the compliance team, there's a whole lot. So I think this session will be a great one where we'll tap from all of their experience in terms of how they have been able to execute at scale and also what we need to do going forward. So to start, I know we've done the introduction, but we'll start with an opening question, and that opening question will go to all of the panelists sitting here. And the question is, what is the barrier to execution in Africa enterprises? What is the barrier? Is it infrastructure? Is it skills? Is it governance? Or is it organizational structure? So we'd like to start first. How do we go? Okay, we'll start with Dr. Yele Okeremi, the Chief Executive Officer of Precise Financial System.
Well, thank you very much. Now, let me start by saying that, in my opinion, the challenge of execution of pretty much any project in Africa is the mindset of the African himself. So let me start by making some general statements. One of the things I have realized is that Africans tend to be a lot more patient with foreigners than they are with their own kith and kin. Secondly, Africans, for some reason, tend to expect solutions to come from people that they are actually better than. And then thirdly, because of the nature of Africa, it's been built on more of an extraction ecosystem, a situation where money comes out of the ground. We haven't trained ourselves sufficiently well to understand how to create value and how to ascribe value. So what I'm saying when I talk about creating and ascribing value, economics teaches us that money is a store of value. All right? However, sociology makes us understand that value is in the eye of the beholder. So how do we marry these things? So for example, I heard in the previous panel where people, for example, in the US can talk about writing checks. We want to build an infrastructure. It's $500 billion. And we come here. We may not be able to write a $500 billion check, But the question is, who needs that amount of money? The bottom line is, at the end of the day, how much value we are able to create for ourselves. And the way to look at that is to look at those issues that are pending and are pressing upon us and guarantee that we can solve those problems by ourselves and have policies that say, if we are unable to solve these challenges by ourselves, we are happy to partner. But it is only for a given amount of time. After which, if we are unable to transfer the understanding, we would rather not have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yele Okeremi. So it's our mindset. We need to change our mindset, how we think. And we need to think from a point of how we can create value. Dr. Yemi, this time, Okeremi, the Group Chief Executive Officer of Y Connect. We'd like to hear your own perspective to that question.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. From my perspective, I think one of the greatest challenges we have is the implementation of technology locally. We see things working excellently well outside, and of course we bring it in. And having the right framework and being able to tropicalize and make it effective in our society is one of our issues. Having said that, though, I don't think we celebrate ourselves enough. Because despite all the hurdles, the imperfections, we are still able to operate at par with other well-developed societies. So, in short, I think if we can focus more on how we adapt to our own ecosystem and the constraints we have, we will be able to create better value. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Yemi said we don't appreciate ourselves enough. So can we give ourselves a round of applause? Let's appreciate ourselves for all the work, that we put into execute, and also look at our own local nuance in terms of how we customize this solution. I would also like Mr. Hakim Adeniji to share his own perspective.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's Adeniji Adele.
Yeah, Adeniji, sorry. Hakim.
Anyway, thank you so much for that. I heard the panelists earlier on, so please permit me to be a bit contrarian.
That's fine.
Okay. I honestly believe that Africa does not really have a deep infrastructural problem. I think, well, not anymore anyway. What I feel we have is we have an execution opportunity. You see, the winners will be those people who can translate their digital ambition into operational reality. And I think while we were having conversation there on today, I kind of noted that down. Now, your question, what's the biggest barrier? For me, I think all four are intertwined. But organizational culture is often the silent saboteur in all of this. That's the way I feel. Infrastructure can be built. Governance can be reformed. Skills can be trained. But without a culture that embraces all this together, accountability, agility, execution will stall. Many enterprises operate in a silo, which is the reason why you see that different companies or even departments resist change and they fear failure. If you really want to understand what the issue is, our culture in Nigeria or in Africa has to shift towards rewarding bold thinking cross-functional collaboration. Let's reward failure sometimes. I always tell my people, infrastructure is the foundation, but execution is the engine. Fail fast, fail forward. So for me, it's all about culture, organizational culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Organizational culture. I like the point. Let's celebrate failure, right? So to fail, it means you must have tried to do something bold. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Okechi Oswago, your perspective.
Hello? Okay. Thank you very much. So from my own perspective, I think it might have a lot to do with skill gaps that maybe, what would I say, relating to exposure. If you look at it holistically, you can see that most of the infrastructure that we use here, we are just consumer, we inherited it. So most of them are not produced or developed here. So now that exposure from the life cycle of that infrastructure development, most of our people are not much conversant with it. So, and when you look at it, when a business wants to put an infrastructure, they wouldn't want to even want, Dr. mentioned, like someone to try and fail. We just want to look at it and get the expert that has already done it before. Please come and just execute this thing. So we don't want to allow failure. So, and that is creating a lot of gap on skills. So that's for me. And again, the second one has to do with collaboration. We have several organizations that have done one thing or the other in the past, but there's lack of collaboration between those enterprises that we don't learn from the mistake of the other. Everybody's playing on its own silos. So that's how I like to contribute.
All right, thank you very much. So we've looked at different perspectives from culture, our mindset, how we think, and also lack of collaboration. And all of this are responsible for the failures or the gaps that we see from execution. Now we want to go straight into execution gaps and the barriers that we see in enterprises. So we'd like to hear from the experts themselves in terms of real life, experience, so we can learn. This question will go to Dr. Yemi. Dr. Yele. It says, in financial services, core banking upgrades and ERP migration often stall. So why does execution fail? And how can operators close the gap?
Well, let me say, and it speaks to pretty much what people have said around here. There are several reasons why a lot of things will fail. Somebody spoke about tropicalization of solutions. Now, so you have brought in, particularly because you are speaking about banking, software, and ERPs. So essentially, what has happened, take a look at the banking landscape and take a look at the financial landscape in Nigeria. Who are the big players? If you are not a Finacle site, you are a FlexCube site. If you don't belong to any of those two, you are a T24 site. Take a look at the ERP. If you are not an Oracle site, you are an SAP site. If you don't belong to those two, you are a Microsoft Dynamics site. Who designed all this? For what markets were they designed? Now let me be very clear. Every market has its own peculiarities and its own nuances. So essentially, I stand bold to say that when I became CIO of a bank in 1991, this was one of the first things I said. We are actually paying for solutions that we will never use 70% of. And yet these solutions do not take care of 60% of our needs. So what then happens is that when you bring those solutions, before they even become relevant to you, you have to teach the person who is supposed to be your leader what you are supposed, what he or she ought to have known. And at the end of the day, just like we were talking about first, second, third, and fourth industrial revolutions, the intellectual property doesn't reside in you. So this guy virtually takes your watch, tells you the time, and goes away with the watch. Now you are expecting that this is going to work adequately. When you patch up things, the chances are that you're going to have cracks. So that's the very first challenge you have. The frame of reference where these solutions were developed, a good number of them were not developed for us. That's the first thing. Secondly, I said that also earlier. A lot of times, when you now attempt to plug in our own practices to those solutions, a good number of those solutions are not rock solid. They cannot take some of the things that actually come. It's not because they are not good, but they were not developed for us. And so you see that these things begin to crumble. Well, of course, after a while, when they've stayed with us for a reasonable period of time, they can understand our practices, they standardize some of them, but at what cost? So these are some of the challenges that I have seen through the years in this industry. They are painful, but I think it's time to reverse some of them.
Thank you very much. Dr. Yemi, I see you nodding your head. It seems you are in total agreement with Dr. Yele. So if you'd like to share your view.
Like I said earlier, I'm talking from the oil and gas perspective. We bring softwares, packages into this country, and the first question is if it's working in the UK, if it's working in the US, why is it not working here? Forgetting that even in your houses in the US, you can have 1 gigabyte speed per second. In Nigeria, we struggle. In fact, I had this heated argument with my subsurface team last week, moving to a new office, and they said they want 500 megabytes per second. It's not a lot, but if you look at the cost of doing business in Nigeria, and you want to stay competitive, you have to ensure that, yes, you have the right balance. You might not be able to ride your Ferrari in Nigeria because of the roads, but you can use your G-Wagon and still achieve the same thing. So there has to be that balance and how we integrate and ensure that we get the desired outputs, even within our bubble. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's safe to say that what we've agreed is that why we fail at execution is because most of the solutions that we build are not built for us. And in executing, there's that gap. So one of the solutions is actually for us to build ourselves, build this platform that suits our environment. All right. So we'll look at the next part, the next question, which is to Mr. Hakim Adeniji Adele. I'm sure I got that right. Okay. So you have experience in building payment platforms. And payment platforms or payment solution today sits at the heart of Africa's digital economy. So what lessons have you learned that you would like to share with us in your journey that has helped to execute this digital transformation at scale? Because if you look at the operations, you kind of process millions of transactions, right? So what can you share with us?
Yeah, thank you. I have to agree with my co-panelists here. One of the most important things that we noticed was a misalignment between a business strategy and technical delivery. As we said earlier on, what we're trying to achieve and what we're buying, two totally different things. But luckily, I'll give you a real life example. I work for eTransact. eTransact 20 years ago built a homegrown solution, switching solution, which worked. When it was time to scale, we couldn't. Now, these are the solutions, and these are what we learned. We realized that we did not really invest in change management as a methodology. We also realized that there was a breakdown in what I call monolithic upgrades. We're not agile, we're not facing things in a modular way. We also did not empower our cross-functional teams. So that kind of had issues because there were no shared KPIs between those that were working on those systems. And also, we didn't really adopt DevOps so that we could accelerate delivery and also reduce our risk. Now, we now did we went the other way. We went out and bought a solution, okay, which has been fantastic for us. But we decided to buy a customized off-the-shelf solution, which meant we're part of the whole build process. So what are the lessons learned? Like I said, we started from a very soft beginning in the sense that we were one of the first switches in Nigeria. So it was okay for us to scale. Then over time, we now realize that it's important, if you really want to build something that works, you have to start with the customer, not the code. That is very important. Because every transformation must solve a real pain. Second, you have to build for resilience and not perfection. Okay? And when I say resilience and not perfection, I'm not saying it should be perfect. Or not really. I'm saying build for resilience and not perfection. Again, fail fast, iterate faster, and scale what works for you. The last one for us was invest in people and partnerships. Technology is only as strong as the talent and the trust behind it. Sorry, that's not the last one. The last one is this. Cloud native architecture and API first design are essential for scale. And my favorite word, again, don't digitize, platformize. If you can do that, you're good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Build for the customer, build for resilience, and also cloud native infrastructure. Okay, so we'll go to Mr. Okechi Osiegu. You work for Vertiv. We're seeing a lot of demand, right, coming from the enterprise. They're shaping even how you innovate in terms of how you execute your solution. Now, looking at what artificial intelligence, compliance requirements, a lot of countries are now talking about owning their data, digital sovereignty or sovereign cloud initiative, and also cybersecurity. These are all driving demands. And that's why we're having this huge workload needing a data center solution. So how are data centers adapting to host those workloads while staying effective and sustainable? I know you provide the solutions to the data center. You don't run it, but we can also get your perspective from them.
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. And what I normally tell people is the innovations in applications and technologies is fast overtaking the rate of deployment of infrastructure. So most time before infrastructure is fully deployed, that is already outdated. So we need to have an innovative way of getting infrastructure that can adapt to ever-changing innovations in application. So for instance, I just want to give a little analogy. There was a time I was helping one of the colo providers to size data center. So the owner was telling me, okay, you want to build a 20 megawatts rack density. So I told him, no, this is huge, because those days it was like 3 3.5 to 5 kilowatts per rack. I say, no, don't try this. You're going to waste a lot of your money, this, a lot of power, cooling. He said, no, that he's already seen the future. That is what I want to be. So, but today, if I look back, I laugh at myself. Look at, I was trying to advise and see what is going on. So now, to address these challenges, we need to look at innovative way of deploying infrastructure. Now, one of the things we see happening is now building a modular and scalable solution. So if you deploy a solution today, it's not built just for today, it's just built to be scaled tomorrow. So you don't have to have issue of after deploying your data center, you're in a fix of, okay, new application is coming, and I'm going to chunk everything here and build another one. So that scalable system is what we encourage people to do now. And again, there's a lot of innovations, especially on liquid cooling, which Vative is championing. So now, when rack density grows beyond something like 50 kilowatts, the traditional cooling system will have, all those air cooling is not going to work. So what works now is a liquid cooling, which have a lot of different ranges of it based on chip cooling, mass cooling, and a whole lot of them. So now, to put it all together, to adapt to ever-changing innovation, you need to have a scalable and modular solution to scale as need arises. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we need solutions that can scale to meet the demands of tomorrow while building to meet the cost of operating today. Okay, so now we move to the governance and compliance part and also the culture, what we see within the organization. And this question goes to all, so we'll start from Dr. Yemi and then Mr. Oshiago back to Mr. Kim. The question says, execution often breaks down between CTOs driving digital agendas and the compliance team enforcing regulation. How can enterprises align innovation with governance without stalling progress? The internal rift that happens within departments. The CTO has a cloud-native strategy. The compliance team is saying, no, you need to comply with the local laws, you need to host it. So how can we align innovation with governance?
Thank you very much. Like you rightly said, it's a myth. There will always be that tension. And I'm going to simplify it, looking at it from the perspective of a manager versus an entrepreneur. The manager wants to maintain status quo, wants his processes to continue the way it's been running. An entrepreneur, on the other hand, is moving at a fast pace, looking for innovation, looking for better ways of getting it done, whereas the manager wants to maintain status quo. So that tension will always be there. I think the key thing, and that is where we must all align, ensuring that the goal is the same. We are all aiming for the same goal, the end game. However, how we get there, even though we have that tension, we have to learn to work together. And it takes a learning curve. And I think that's usually where the problem is. While the regulators keep saying, this is the law, let's enforce it, by the time the end customer gets used to that particular one, it's probably become obsolete and they have to change again. And so that tension will be continuous. But my point again is that ensuring alignment, you knowing that we are all going for the same goal, the same purpose. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think I'm much in line to what you said. So the key thing is there is the goal alignment. So all the stakeholders involved have to align to the common goal. And there has to be a constant communication of the goal. Because if everybody understands the goal, irrespective of whether there's a divergence, maybe this is a CTO, this is an entrepreneur, they understand the common goal. And at every point in time, this goal is being communicated, and everybody knows that they are not working in a silo, they are all working for a common objective. I give you an instance. There was one of the communication they did. I think it has to do with a rocket launching program. So they say they communicate the goal that even the cleaner understand what everybody there in the room are doing. So the cleaners are cleaning for the place to have a conducive environment for the engineers that are working to send rocket to the moon. So if we bring it down home, everybody has that good communication, understanding of the common goal. There won't be much disparity on their thinking because they will understand that they are working together, not in silos. Thank you.
All right.
Well, I can't even add to what you have said. Because, you know, when we talk about the goal, you just said it the right way. It's not about the how. It's not about the what. It is the why that must be propagated. Because, you see, the what will change, the how will change, but the why remains. And once that is understood by everybody, then it's easy. However, two other things are important. One of the things I see, when you understand the goal, the way it's been said, it helps particularly tech people shift their thinking. One of the things I said in 1991, when I was CIO, I wrote a memo and I said to the management of my bank to spin off my department, that the bank doesn't need an IT department the way we were practicing it. That make it a company. You are already our clients. Let's work for so many other places. That was then. Nobody believed what we said then, but what's happening today. So that's why I say, however, one thing is important. IT people, a lot of times, they like toys. So when you come to IT projects, come to Nigeria, you see the latest in technology. You see the highest in technology. But is that what the business actually needs? These are the questions we ask. Then lastly, is that we need to understand that the modus operandi for a startup is significantly different from that of an establishment. When you are a startup, what are you looking for? You know, you said it, and I was nodding because when eTransact was coming up from Vano, Valentine came to my house and we spoke about these things. So the entire blueprint, a startup, you want agility. You want decisions to be taken possibly by the same person and act immediately. But as you begin to become an establishment, you need to begin to understand checks and balances. But if a startup attempts to put checks and balances in place, it will never scale. So if we understand that it's necessary that that transition will take place, then we will be going somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic question, by the way. It's funny. I used to be a CTO for Microsoft, and when consulting for other companies, and we reach out to the CRO or the compliance officer, we used to call them back then. We used to call them Chief Business Destroyer. Why? Because you come up with a plan, and they come and tell you why you can't do it. And you're thinking, what are you on about? Anyway, for me, yes, CTO wants to do stuff. He has his cloud native strategy top of mind. You have compliance that is enforcing regulation. Alignment starts with shared language and shared goals, as you said. CTOs and compliance leaders, they must really understand that governance framework has to be co-designed, or else it will fail. What tends to happen sometimes is that you find out that the governance framework is coming from compliance, CTO is not aware or part of the whole framework, and everything falls apart. There'll never be innovation, or even if there is, it will restrict it, which means they can't really scale. It's also important that they use risk assessments as well, agile risk assessments, to iterate quickly. The other one I'm writing down now here is to embed compliance into their DevOps pipeline. Very important. That's actually the most important to me. You must embed compliance into your DevOps pipelines, so it's proactive. Because if it's not, you find out that the compliance guys are always reactive to what they've come forward with. Then, again, foster a culture of transparency and trust. Very, very important between both. Innovation and governance for me are not opposite at all. I think they're partners for you to have a sustainable execution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all our panelists. Governance and innovation needs to go hand in hand. So that's the summary, right? So we'll be having one last closing questions to all, and in one sentence, just one sentence. We'd like to know what's the single most important step that African enterprises must take to move infrastructure adoption to successful execution. I know we've said it in different ways, but one important step. So this time, we'll start from Mr. Kim and we'll take it to the end.
Yeah, thank you. One important step. First of all, okay. In one sentence, you said, I think we need to shift from project thinking to product ownership, empowering teams to build, to own, and also to evolve solutions that can deliver real value.
All right, thank you.
Well, I think the way I would put it is that we need to understand that metamorphosis is a painful process. So it means that leaders, business leaders, need to appreciate that in the life cycle of starting, building, scaling, maturity, and reinvention, there will be necessary changes that will affect both the original visionary and the entire institution. And those changes are going to be painful. So prepare for the pain in advance.
Thank you.
Okay, so for me, I think in my last sentence would be we need to rethink how we perceive deployment and execution. So, and it has to do with a lot of mindset and culture changes. So we need to rethink and understand there's had to be a lot of handshake collaboration for us to have a successful execution. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, for me, I will sum it up in sustainable development. And when I say sustainable development, we have to constantly improve and develop ourselves in terms of personnel, in terms of hardware, such that we are constantly growing and adding value at all times. Not necessarily celebrating past glory, but constantly looking for ways to improve ourselves. And one thing that it's apparent, especially now, is ensuring that the knowledge is passed on to the next generation. And we are training and developing new people who can even do it faster and probably even better than we have done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think they deserve a round of applause. Please, round of applause to all our panelists for sharing this real live insight with us. We would like to ask some questions from the audience, if we don't mind. We can take a few questions. So no question means that they did a very good job, right? Okay, so, I mean, we've seen what maturity looks like in terms of where Africa digital economy is supposed to be. We've seen that it's not just about building infrastructure, but we need to also use infrastructure. We need to get the best out of it. We need to learn how to execute. We need to understand the challenges which they've just shared with us. And I think on that note, we'll call it a day. And thank you very much, our panelists, for coming. And please, you can all stand up and take